Well, that was 87 minutes of my life that I'll never get back. Hello, Jacksonites, and welcome to the 7th installment of my Gamera series review. I think I may owe Gamera vs. Virus an apology. Actually, no, I don't, because Gamera vs. Virus is a legitimately bad movie. But if there's one thing I can also say about Virus in hindsight, is that at least the entire movie wasn't boring. Yes, there were many moments of the movie that were boring, but at least, like I said, it wasn't entirely boring. Same cannot be said for Gamera versus Zigra. So Gamera versus Zigra, to quote Brendan Tenold, is kind of the penultimate installment in the Gamera series. It's kind of infamous due to the fact that during the making of Gamera versus Zigra was when Dai's financial issues had really started to set in and were really starting to hurt Dai. The reason for Dai's financial struggles, well, it's kind of a combination of two things. One, it's the drastic changes that Japan was going through at the time. If you want that story, just watch my Space Amoeba review. It was because TV was being introduced to Japan at the time, and the Japanese movie industry was taking a hit. But the other thing that Dai was suffering from was its own stupidity, because it was refusing to change with the times like Toho was trying to do. It was kind of slow to get to the point at first, but eventually over time Toho learned to change with the times and salvage itself and become a mega corporation again. Dai either just never understood how to do it, or the executives and the presidents of Dai just refused to change and just kept running the business in an obsolete way, in an outdated way, and that's what eventually caused Dai's downfall. And it was after Gamera versus Zigra that Dai finally went bankrupt in 1972, which canned the Gamera series for a while, and also canned a couple ideas that Dai had for future Gamera movies, probably the most famous of all being Gamera versus Gara Sharp, which would have been a movie about Gamera fighting a giant green cobra snake monster that steals Gamera's power by sticking its tongue down Gamera's throat. What? So anyway, yeah, Gamera versus Zigra is also kind of infamous because, in film, you watch a certain movie and you can tell just by the energy that you get off the film that the filmmakers just had a complete blast making the movie, or just everything was just such a fine and dandy, smooth filmmaking operation. Of course, with filmmaking, there's always going to be some problems, but the overall package was getting the movie made was soft, firm, easy peasy. And then there are also certain movies where you watch and just the general vibe and energy that you get from the movie is that making it was just a complete fucking nightmare. And there's just a lot of problems on set. There's a lot of problems with the actors. There's a lot of problems with the studio. It's actually, I think, the amount of movies where It's clear that the filmmakers had a blast making the movie. I'm pretty sure it's slightly outshined by, I say slightly because there are quite a few movies out there where it was just wham bam thank you ma'am. But it is outnumbered by the amount of movies where it's fairly obvious looking at the movie that making was just a total nightmare. Just to give you some examples, House of a Thousand Corpses. I could go into a whole spiel about that. Um, the original Cleopatra, that was a complete fucking nightmare to make. Um, let's see. God damn it! I had now I'm drawing a blank. Oh, Apocalypse Now. The Val Kilmer, or not Val Kilmer. Yeah, Val Kilmer's in it. The Val Kilmer Island of Dr. Moreau. The 2010 remake of The Wolf Man. I love that movie, but it did have a trouble with production. Death Sport, the Brendan Tenold movie. I have seen Death Sport. Um, and also Gamera versus Zigra. Ironically, that's the seventh movie. This is the seventh film in the franchise. Gamera. I don't really know all the specifics of the production for Gamera versus Zigra, but this was when I'm pretty sure this was when Dai's financial issues were really starting to hit Dai in the balls. There's not really any This is a movie that's shot pretty on the cheap. It uses a lot of location shooting, and location shooting is done for one of, I think, three things. One, it's the creator's choice. Two, it's done for financial reasons. This is kind of split up into two things. It's done to either make money or save money. In this case, it was done to save money. There's a lot of location shooting. There's no city destruction scenes by any kaiju, or at least very, very, very little. There's a little bit of stock footage that's used to showcase cities being destroyed, and there's Zigra's spaceship going around, blowing up like two or three buildings, and that's about it. The monster fights are lackluster. The special effects that we see really aren't that good. This movie screams of being made on the cheap. Like, they didn't have the budget to make the stuff that people wanted to see in a excuse me in a movie called Gamera versus Zigra, and that's one of this movie's biggest problems. So my history with Gamera versus Zigra, it was I think almost as much as Gamera versus Jiger. Um, Gamera versus Zigra just came off as a really, really, really forgettable installment. Actually, the only thing that made this movie stick out to me is the title monster, Zigra. I'll get to that when I get to the pros and cons of the film. But that's pretty much why this movie is more rememberable. I don't think that's a word, but than Jiger, is because of Zigra himself. But I'd read the plot to Gamera versus Zigra, and I just always said to myself, that just doesn't sound like the best monster movie. And it actually wasn't until I got the Gamera Legacy Collection when I finally sat down to watch Gamera versus Zigra for the first time. And oh my God, it was one of the toughest sits I have ever had in my life. Gamera versus Zigra may potentially be the most boring monster movie I have ever seen in my life. It's got some competition with Gamera versus Virus and the next movie. Though I think the next movie is boring, but it's also more insultingly and infuriatingly bad. So that kind of overshadows its boringness. But still, Gamera versus Zigra is just a complete and utter bore. If you were to look up boring in the dictionary, you would just see you would just see the poster of Gamera versus Zigra. Oh, by the way, if you haven't been able to tell, today I will be reviewing Gamera versus Zigra from 1971. There, you can see that pretty well. So yeah, you would just see a poster of Gamera versus Zigra next to the word boring in the dictionary. It is that bad. There's very, very, very well, actually, no, not necessarily. There's a, only a small handful of kaiju movies that are anywhere near as boring as Gamera versus Zigra. And again, and I thought Virus was bad. I thought Jiger was bad. Well, Jiger's not bad, but you know what I mean. That is really the biggest problem with Gamera versus Zigra, is that it is just boring. And if I was to make a top 10 list of the most boring movies I'd ever seen, Zigra would be at least in the top 5. And I know this is a very common thing that moviegoers say, but I really do legitimately believe that the worst sin a movie can do is be boring as hell. Because I've also said this before, I believe a movie's purpose is to solely be for entertainment. I don't think a movie should be made if you want to make a political message. I don't think a movie should be made if you want to have a social commentary. If you just so happen to include a social commentary, but you still have entertaining people in mind, I don't necessarily mind that. I still think that the director is being still a little pretentious, but he still has entertainment in mind, so I'll give him a little bit of a break. But if you're making a movie just for the sole intention of making a social commentary or saying a social message or just having it be a pretentious movie, you're not a good filmmaker in my eyes. You may as well just write a book. This is why I think a lot of movies made nowadays with all these social commentaries and social messages, I find them to be boring. Thankfully, there is no pretentious social. Well, actually, no. Yes, there is. Though it's a different kind. Though it's nothing new, because we've seen this type of thing in monster movies before. I'll get to that when I get to the cons. But I really do think a movie's worst sin is to be boring. A movie should be made for entertainment purposes. And this movie is not entertaining at all. I'm kind of just repeating myself, but you know what I mean. So yeah, my personal history with Gamera versus Zigra is I've only seen this movie 3 times. I saw it once when I first saw it. I saw it a second time when I was just trying to skim through it to see if there was any scenes where I could say were good. There's actually only one. Two scenes in an 87-minute long movie where that I could legitimately say, yeah, that was kind of fun. Thankfully, this movie wasn't like 187 minutes long, because that would just be. I'd say this is the worst monster movie ever made, even worse than the next movie. If it was 187 minutes long, Dai couldn't afford to do that kind of movie for the life of him. But yeah. So with all that being said, oh yeah, and the third time I watched it was not long before I did this review, and god damn, was it a tough sit. So, with that being said, let's get into the plot of Gamera versus Zigra, shall we? So, without warning, an alien spaceship attacks a Japanese moon base, because apparently we have these in 1971 now. And back on Earth, a young boy named Kenichi, nicknamed Kenny in the English dub version. You're welcome, Brendan Tenold. His father, Dr. Yosuke, and his friend Helen Wallace and her father, Dr. Tom Wallace, witnessed the spaceship descending into the ocean. And they go out to investigate what's going on. However, they are soon captured by a teleportation beam, which pretty much may as well be the super catch ray that the Verusians use. And it brings them aboard this spaceship, and inside, a human-looking woman reveals that she is from an alien race called Zigrans. Again, kind of like the Verusians thing. By way of demonstrating Zigran technological prowess, she creates a massive, gigantic earthquake that completely devastates Japan. I think it said in English that was like magnitude 13, which would be a colossal earthquake. I think the one that hit Fukushima in, I think it was 2011. I think that was like a magnitude 9, and that was very serious. So imagine a magnitude 13 earthquake. She had previously caused 2 other giant quakes, one in Peru and the other in Arabia, which had completely devastated those, though this movie does the tell, don't show method, which is really frustrating. She then proceeds to tell her prisoners that the planet Zigra's history and its great scientific advances, which unfortunately resulted in its destruction. Did Godzilla vs. Gigan rip this off? But in searching for a new home, Zigra found Earth, of course. Again, there's a lot of elements taken from Gamera vs. Virus in this film. And the woman contacts authorities on Earth and orders them to surrender or she will kill her prisoners. And Tom declares that the Zigran woman is insane, and in anger, she sends the 2 men into a hypnotic trance. Kenichi and Helen take action, and they successfully escape using the ship's controls with their fathers. And enraged, Zigra orders this woman to go to Earth and kill the kids, doing a very incompetent job, hypnotizing one woman for her clothes, hypnotizing another for their clothes, tricking a marine biologist to take her to Tokyo's SeaWorld. Almost said aquarium. SeaWorld. And then a la Scooby-Doo chase, she chases them throughout the she chases them throughout the SeaWorld place, a la Scooby-Doo chase, hiding behind pillars, hiding in other rooms, and coming out this way, coming out that way, and just confusing the ever-living shit out of this Zigran woman. It's completely absurd. She says it would be simpler to kill all the people of Japan before she does this. However, Zigra tells her that humans must be preserved so they can be used as food. Did Final Wars rip this one off? That's an insult to Final Wars. I'm not going to do that. Then Gamera shows up. Oh yeah, Gamera's in this movie. Intent on discovering the identity of this alien ship, flies in to save the day and rescues the children and their fathers. The UN authorities, after questioning Kenichi and Helen, resolve to attack Zigra. However, once the defense forces are scrambled, the Zigran spaceship makes short work of them with its powerful laser beam. The alien woman arrives on Earth, disguised as a normal human, and gets along with her Scooby-Doo chase, which is completely fucking stupid. Gamera then begins an underwater assault on the Zigran spaceship, which, when it's destroyed, it transforms into a giant shark-like kaiju, and finally halts the heroic turtle with a ray that suspends his cell activity. Essentially, it's a paralyzer beam, as it's known as. Immobilized, Gamera sinks into the sea, and Gamera then makes contact telepathically with the people of Earth, saying that they must give up and surrender all the seas to it. Again, typical alien invasion plot. Then back at SeaWorld, the dolphin trainer there was a dolphin trainer, excuse me, not a marine biologist. The facility scientists discover a way to break Zigra's hypnotic control with some kind of sonic wave. And thus they manage to disable the Zigran woman, only to learn that she actually is an Earth woman named Chikako Sugawara, who had been in a moon rover during the initial lunar attack and was captured and used by Zigra. Big surprise. And Dr. Wallace and Dr. Ishikawa employ a bathysphere in an attempt to wake Gamera from his mid-movie coma. And they also find that Kenichi and Helen have stowed away on board. Zigra suddenly then attacks and again demands the immediate surrender of Earth, or it will destroy the bathysphere. And they do a repeat of Gamera versus Virus, where they reluctantly agree to the aliens' terms and surrender, choosing to not sacrifice the lives of only 4 people. An electrical storm approaches the bay, and a couple lightning bolts shock Gamera via his feet and revive him, where last movie it took over 2 million volt. Actually, no. I guess the lightning would be a stronger charge, because I think it's been said that if we were to figure out a way to harness 1 bolt of lightning, it would power a city for 2 years. At least I think that's what it was. Either way, obviously lightning's going to have a lot of electrical power. Gamera then stealthily takes the bathysphere from the sea floor, which is one of only 2 scenes in this movie, which is actually kind of fun, when Zigra is not watching, and returns it to the surface. Gamera and Zigra face off a final time, and Zigra, at first using its superior versatility, slices Gamera's chest with his dorsal fins. However, Gamera soon takes hold of Zigra, flies into the air, and drops it down at high speed, slamming the alien monster onto the ground. Zigra then stands up awkwardly on its tail fins in order to fight Gamera. He then further incapacitates Zigra by jamming a boulder through its nose and weighs it on the ground. And then proceeds to do the second enjoyable scene in this movie, where Gamera takes another smaller boulder, and plays his own theme song on Zigra's dorsal fins like a xylophone. And then proceeds to turn it into fried fish and supply McDonald's with McFish fillets for the next 10 years, thus ending the movie. So how about this story? In case you couldn't tell, this plot does feel very, very, very similar to Gamera versus Virus. It's got a lot of plot threads that are taken right out of Gamera versus Virus. It kind of does have a similar tone to Gamera Virus, though here it manages to feel even more hackneyed, because at least with Gamera versus Virus, it had the honor of saying this is the first time we're doing an alien invasion plot with the Gamera series. Here, this movie doesn't have that, and here it just feels older than ever. And it's only going to get worse from here when we get to the next movie. But overall, this story, it's nothing new. It's very hackneyed. It almost feels more rehashed than the previous movie, though it doesn't quite suffer from being rehashed as bad as the previous movie, because Gamera vs. Zigra was rehashing ideas from multiple movies. This movie is mainly rehashing ideas from one previous Gamera movie. Being one of the worst Gamera movies, you could kind of say that's kind of a bad trade-off right there, but I still say in terms of rehashing, Zigra does it worse than Zigra, but Zigra still, that's not saying Zigra is good for doing it. So, yeah, there's that. So let's get to the pros and cons of Gamera versus Zigra, shall we? The one, and I do mean one pro that I have for Hello Gamer Grimson Gojira. I didn't see you there. My favorite turtle guy rescues kids because why not Godzilla? Well, Godzilla didn't really start doing it until the 70s, but anyway, hang on, I gotta see if my article's loaded up. Yeah, here we go. So my one pro that I have for Gamera versus Zigra is Zigra himself. I really do like Zigra as design wise as a monster. Um, I like the silvery blackish look of his body. It is kind of reminiscent of an inverse great white shark color scheme because great white sharks they're dark on the top. They're dark on top and they're light on the bottom. With Zigra, it's kind of the reverse way. He's dark on the bottom and light on top. And I do like the really spiky, almost kind of skeletal esque look to him. Um, and I do like the fact that he's based on a goblin shark, which is a rare species of shark. Um, and I mean, I don't mind shark themed monsters. I actually think they're kind of underrated. Actually, they're extremely underrated because the only other shark themed monster I can think of in any tokusatsu series is from Ultraman Tiga. There's the monster called Geo Shark, which is essentially a big giant sand shark that swims on land. I have not. It kind of sounds like the movie Sand Shark. I have not seen Sand Shark. I'd like to though, because it looks like a gloriously shitty shark movie. Maybe I should do that one year, a shitty shark movie binge. Actually, that's a great idea. So at least something good came out of Gamera versus Zigra. It inspired me to do a shitty shark movie binge. But anyway, Geoshark has a cool design, even though the reveal that's actually a robot's kind of stupid. But other than Geoshark, Zigra is the only other shark kaiju that has been done, at least to my knowledge. I'm a big Ultraman fan, but I haven't seen every single monster that's in the Ultraman franchise, which is pretty hard to do because the Ultraman franchise has a lot more kaiju than both Gamera and Godzilla put together. Because with Godzilla there's 30 movies, and with Gamera there's 12 movies, so that's 42 movies. But Ultraman, I mean, the original series had 39 episodes. That's I know a couple monsters repeated, so let's just say that's 35 monsters. Then with Ultraman Jack, there was 40 or not 40, 50 episodes. So let's say that's 48 monsters. I mean, you have almost 100 right there. So yeah, and with Ultraman Taro, that's 53. So let's just say that's 50. Ultraman Ace, that was 50 as well. Let's just say 46. So that's more than 200 monsters right there with just 4 installments. Because it's an episodic series, it's a TV series. It's not a series of movies. So it's kind of difficult to gauge. So, oh wait, no, I do. Speak of Ultraman Taro, there was also sawtooth shark themed monsters in there. I can't remember their names, so I guess that's 3 shark kaiju that I can get name off the top of my head. So yeah, shark kaiju are very rare in Toku, and I think that's kind of a shame because I do really like. Granted, it does always lead to sea theme battles, but you know what? That's not really a bad thing. It kind of breaks up the monotony of fights that take place either in a forest or in a city. Ultraman franchise does that all the time. So it usually leads to some kind of submerged fight, and I do think that's cool. And also, I like Zigra's design. His motivations are nothing new. He's just an alien who's looking to conquer another planet. And also, I do like that he's one of the few Gamera villains to have his own intelligence. Virus technically had his own intelligence, but he was kind of subdued for most of the movie because he just let his minions do most of the work. Zigra himself is doing most of the heavy lifting because he's a giant monster. Well, he's a giant alien monster, but still a giant monster nonetheless. He actually has the capacity to do some damage, kind of. So I like Zigra's design. His motivations are nothing new, but at least they have some decent ideas. I don't like his energy attack. I think his energy attack is really lame. I would have preferred if it was just like a laser that he shot out of his nose. It would have been weird, but it would have been better than his paralysis beam. So overall, I do like Zigra's design. It's just he's in a shitty movie, so that's a damn shame. And yes, I am aware that he was one of those monsters that was reused in the Gamera Guardian of the Universe comic series. But I think there he was just reduced to a generic cannon fodder monster. I haven't read that series, so I wouldn't really know. But so that's from what I've heard. So he's not done much better there. And with that being said, let's get on to the cons. Like I said, Zigra himself is the only good thing I can say about this movie. See, I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 cons for Gamera versus Zigra. I'm going to kind of rapid fire through these because a lot of these problems are present in a lot of previous Gamera movies. Con number one is that this movie is paced so terribly. It is so slow. It plods, it drags. Like I said, aside from those two scenes, this movie is slower than a fucking snail. It's incredibly boring. It's incredibly difficult to sit through. That's really what made this movie so difficult to sit through, is this movie's pacing and how boring this movie was. Oh my god, just this movie's paced horrendously. Con number two is that the story itself is pretty poor. A lot of it is a rehash of Gamera versus Virus, and Virus didn't have a good story to begin with. It was a hackneyed alien invasion plot. So rehashing a bad story isn't a good move, guys. It's incredibly cliche. It's incredibly overdone. I even think for 1971 it was incredibly overdone by that point. So in that case, it's not well done. Overall, just the story is very hackneyed, it's very cliche, it's very predictable, and it's just not well done. Con number three is that once again, the music score for this movie is pretty fucking bad. It's not catchy, aside from the xylophone scene. It's not fun to listen to. It's not exciting. It doesn't fit the scene. It is just bad, bad, bad music. Why did they keep the same dude to rescore 5 fucking Gamera movies? I think he does Super Monster too. In fact, let me see if he does. Nah, I won't see it. Yeah, fuck it. I'll look at it. Wait, no, not versus Super Monster. Yes, he did. He did do the music for Gamera Super Monster. So he did Virus, Guiron, Jiger, Zigra, and Super Monster. Why do they have the same dude score 5 fucking movies? So, yeah. Let's see. 1, 2, 3. Con number 4 is there's no city destruction scenes. This may sound kind of nitpicky, but still, it is a staple of kaiju films to have at least one city destruction scene. Even if it's kind of poorly executed, it still is somewhat fun to watch. Here, there's nothing. There's a couple shots with some stock footage and a couple brief scenes of miniatures being destroyed, but aside from that, there's no city destruction scenes. This, like I said earlier, this movie employs the tell, don't show technique. That's never good unless it's intentional to build suspense and let the audience use their imagination. But at least here, that's all you can do, and it's really frustrating because of that. Con number, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is that the special effects are once again pretty fucking poor. The small amount of miniature sets that they use, they're very basic. They're very paper thin. They're one step above being using cardboard boxes. The suits don't look very good. Gamera's suit doesn't. I mean, it looks the same from the last movie, just not shot very well. The Zigra suit, it looks fine, but there's also many shots where it's obvious that it's just a prop. Like there's nobody inside the thing. The blue screen effects don't look good. The beam effects don't look good. Overall, the special effects are really piss poor. The monster fights, con number 6, is another one. The monster fights in this movie are also piss poor. They're very lackluster. They're very short. They're very brief. They're few and far between. They're just bad. Some of the worst monster fights I've ever seen in my life. The cast, con number 7, is horrendous. Every character is annoying. Every character is a dumbass. Every character is badly acted, poorly written. The entire human cast, and especially the kids, these are some of the most insufferable kids I have ever seen in a monster movie ever. These are like 5 years old apiece, and they're extremely annoying. Oh man, these human characters are terrible. And yes, I am getting quiet because you know who are starting to go to bed. This cast is just horrendous. And con number 8 is that, like Godzilla vs. Hedorah, which also came out in 1971, this movie has a forced environmental message. It's not quite as forced as Godzilla vs. Hedorah, but it is still there, and it's shoved down your throat, and it sticks out like a sore thumb. It's really preachy. It's really stupid. It sticks out like a sore thumb. It's just not well executed, just like the rest of this movie. This is just a horrible, horrible, horrible monster movie. It's one of the worst Gamera movies ever made. It is easily in my top 5. May have a lot of cons, but is it worse than Mothra vs. Godzilla in 1992? Actually, yes. I would legitimately probably would say yes. Because at least there's a couple scenes in Mothra vs. Godzilla in 1992 that are entertaining. Here, there's 2, but they're very brief and few and far between. So with that being said, this is one of the worst monster movies I have ever seen. It is easily the top 5 most boring monster movies I've ever seen. Completely awful, and its rating is a 0.5 out of 10. It's a full point lower than Virus. Oh my god. Do not watch this movie unless you're a diehard Gamera fan and you're a completionist. It is terrible. So post your comments down below. Let me know what you think. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, share this video with your friends, and look forward to tomorrow's review where I review, oh boy, Gamera Super Monster. God help me. And as always, go out and investigate an alien goblin shark monster that's trying to take over your Earth seas and use you as food. And I will see you guys in the next video.